Well, hello, Chase Oaks, and happy Father's Day weekend. And we're so glad that you are celebrating with us this weekend, wherever you are, whether in this area or some other part of the country or some other part of the world. And to help us celebrate dads, we're going to kind of get into the whole experience. We're going to get some help from Taylor Swift, kind of talking about her best day. And so let's get started.
Welcome to Chase Oaks Online. We're so glad that you are joining us this weekend. And if this is your first time tuning in with us, we'd love to connect with you. So text new to 58578 and we'll reach out to you later this week. Well, I'm pumped because my friend Matt Snellings is here with us this weekend. He is the San Antonio campus pastor, and he has driven up to join us for the online experience for Father's Day weekend. So we're glad to have him. Matt, can you tell us a little bit about San Antonio, what's going on, and then also It's Father's Day. Maybe a tip for any new dads out there.
Okay, yeah. So a lot of great things going on in San Antonio. We've been meeting for monthly meetings. We just wrapped one up last weekend. And starting in August, we will have weekly meetings. And so I'm super psyched about that. Can't
Awesome.
wait to kick off services there. And hello to my people online. And then father's advice. I mean, that's a lot of pressure.
Oh.
I think I'll default to something that's like similar to marital advice, which is mom's always right. Something like that.
That's
like,
fair.
Listen to your
That's
mother.
fair.
That's good. Yeah. But, hey, happy Father's Day to everybody, whether you're here in the room or online, and whether you're a dad, a father figure, or a mentor. Thank you for sharing this weekend with us, and we're so glad to have you with us. And man, what a weekend. Man, we're super excited about the service, and Jeff has an inspirational message that he's going to share with us. I personally can't wait, so how about you?
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. So if you will stick around, we're going to be back just a few minutes after the sermon. But for now, we're going to go ahead and kick it over to Jeff.
Well, hello once again, and once again, happy Father's Day weekend. And dads, you're kind of a big deal, such a big deal that we're taking a break from our series called Resolve, where we're looking at how to resolve some of the difficult things in relationships we tend to keep in there to help them just be free of that. And we'll finish out that series next week. So one more week for relationships to be bad. And then next week we'll fix it. How about that? That fair enough? But this week we want to honor dads, and because, as I said, you are kind of a big deal. And we're going to talk more than just dads, but let me focus on dad just a little bit. To let you know how big of a deal you are, I'm going to read some quotes from kids about their dads. And these are excerpts from these essays that have been done since the 1990s. They've done it every year in Illinois, this essay contest that kids write. They have like 500,000 of these now, and I'm not going to go that many, but here's just some excerpts from a few. This one from a sixth grader. Without my father, it would be like a ball without any air inside it. When I'm feeling sad, he comes and cheers me up by telling me a silly joke or buying me a pack of baseball cards. My dad is a hardworking man, but he still has time for me. So way to go, Dad. This first grader, it's going to talk about Frito-Lay, and after all, I picked this one since we're, in North Dallas, Plano, headquarters of Frito-Lay. He's a Frito-Lay man. That's an important job because Frito-Lay means chips, which is food. That's so important because you could not live without food. Proud of his dad. A fourth grader, my dad is so great that if someone offered me a choice to be rich or to love my dad, I'd say definitely love my dad. I'm already rich. I've got the greatest dad. That's sweet or what? So that'll give you an idea, right? And look it up, though. There's so many of those. If you look up Illinois and essays about dads, it's pretty cool reading that. And so I do want to say happy Father's Day to dads. And the fact that you're here this weekend is really cool because it tells me a lot about you, and it tells your family a lot about you, because on Father's Day, dads kind of get a free pass. You can do what you want to do. And you've decided, whether you're watching online or here at our physical campus, you've decided to make a priority of coming to church. Now, some of you may be thinking, wait a minute, I could have done whatever I wanted to do. But I'm still going to count you as as being a person, say, no, I'm going to make this a priority. And I think that's really important because kids are always watching, and we're going to talk about that today, about how important it is if we're going to pass on the faith to develop it ourselves. And the fact that you're here tells me that your spiritual life, your spiritual journey, you may not be a Christ follower yet, but your spiritual search is important to you enough that you've showed up. Or if you are a Christ follower, it's important enough to you that you've made this a priority. And I think that's really, really cool. It also tells me and tells that you want to pass on the faith to your kids. And so that's what we're going to talk about today is how to pass on the baton of faith. How do we pass on spirituality to our kids? And I know a lot of you aren't dads. Most of you aren't dads that are watching or here right now. And we're going to talk to more than just dads because all of us have responsibility to help pass the faith on to the next generation. God has placed kids in your life on purpose. It could be you may be a mom. You may be an aunt or an uncle or a grandparent. You may be an older brother or older sister. Even just the fact that you're in this church means you have responsibility for the next generation in our church. It's all of us are in on this. And all of us, I believe, with the life in the kids in our lives, we want our kids to know God. We want them to flourish in the way that only a person can flourish when they follow Jesus. We want them to live into the destiny that he has for them. And so how do we help make that happen? What is our role? How do we do all we can to pass the baton well and not fumble the baton pass? And you could certainly argue really easily, this is an important time in history in our culture to make sure we don't fumble the baton pass. And so let's talk about it. And the good news is we have an incredible passage in the Old Testament at a critical time in history then, when the people of God in the Old Testament, Israel, they were going into the promised land, and Moses, their leader at the time, is helping them understand how they can pass the baton of faith to the next generation as he's preparing them to go into the promised land. And in Deuteronomy 6 is just this incredible passage how to do that, and here's where it starts. These are the commands, decrees, and laws the Lord your God directed me to teach you to observe in the land that you are crossing the Jordan to possess. He's just given them all these instructions so that you, your children, and their children after them may fear the Lord your God as long as you live by keeping all his decrees and commands that I give you, and so that you may enjoy long life. Hear, Israel, and be careful to obey so that it may go well with you and that you may increase greatly in a land flowing with milk and honey, just as the Lord, the God of your ancestors, promised you. What he's saying is when you and I submit to God, when we obey what God says, God doesn't just arbitrarily tell us to do stuff just for the fun of it. He made the world. He knows how it works. He knows how it works best. And if you and I are going to flourish in life, it's going to be as we learn to obey all that God has taught and live in it, because that's why he gave it. That's why we have that wisdom. But notice Moses said, I want you to do this in a way that not only you, but your children and their children after them will continue to be able to flourish as they live in obedience to God. So the question is, well, how do we help not just us, but our children and their children and their children and their children from generation to generation to generation? How do we get this right? How do we pass the baton? Let's keep going, because here's the baton. Here's what we're trying to pass. He'll then tell us how to do it. But this verse is arguably the most important verse in the whole Old Testament. It's called the Shema. And it's, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength. When I say that was the most important passage in the Old Testament, it was actually a good Israelite was instructed in Deuteronomy, and they did this. Jesus would have done this growing up. It would have been the first verse he memorized. Every morning when they got up, the first thing they did is say the Shema, this verse. At night, before they went to bed, the last thing they did at night was say this verse. Martyrs, when people were martyred for their faith throughout Jewish history, they would, as whatever was happening, they would say this verse. When Jesus was asked, what is the most important commandment in the whole Bible? He said, the Shema, this verse. And when you look at it, it makes sense, right? Because it's love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength. That's what we're trying to pass on. It's a life that says, I don't just believe some things. That's not the Christian life. The Christian life goes way beyond that. It's saying, I'm going to love God more than anything else. He's the one that's going to drive my life. I'm going to center my life around him. And I'm going to love him with all my heart and with all my soul and all my strength, a passionate devotion to God so that I can live fully into all that he has for me. That's what we want to pass on to our kids. Well, how do we do that? These commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. Tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. Write them on the door frames of your houses and on your gates. And when you kind of pull that out, couple of disciplines to do. Because the baton pass is easy to fumble. It's not just going to happen. It takes some intentionality. And to be intentional in two ways. One is to develop your own contagious relationship with God. Meaning if you and I are going to pass the baton of faith, we have to have the baton of faith. You and I can only pass on to somebody else what we have. We can't give what we don't already have. In Christianity, spirituality, a passionate love for God is definitely more caught than taught. And that's why I said develop your own contagious relationship, because spirituality is more like a contagious disease. It's passed organically. And we know a little bit about contagious diseases lately, coming out of a pandemic. And it's awesome that I can say coming out of a pandemic, right, after all that we've gone through in COVID season. But we're still in this kind of awkward season. I don't know about you, but you're like, well, should I wear a mask or not when you go somewhere, like you go into a restaurant or you go into a mall or you go into a grocery store? Should I wear one of these or not? Even though I'm vaccinated, should I do it? And some people do and some people don't. What I'm seeing a lot lately is people doing it, and I'll describe it for those who are just listening to this, where they have a mask on, but it's like under their chin. That's happening a lot. And it's really kind of bizarre to me, like, why? But I think it's a way to say to people who think we should wear masks, like, hey, I've got one. But for people who think we shouldn't, it's like, yeah, but I'm not going to put it on my mouth. I'm cool, right? So it's like, it's sort of like trying to please everybody, which you can't do. Trust me, I know. And so, but there's that awkwardness of the mask, or awkwardness of handshakes. I'm kind of over it now. I mean, now it's fine, but about 4 weeks ago, even 5 weeks ago, when people first started shaking hands again, and I know it's still awkward for some people. I'm kind of like, yeah, I'm cool with it now. But 5-6 weeks ago, it was like, wait a minute, is this okay? Like, should I, somebody would hold out their hand, and I'd do this instant math in my head because I got the J&J vaccine. So I'm thinking, okay, I've got an 85% chance. The other one's 96%, but I've got an 85% chance if this person has COVID of this vaccine working and I won't get COVID. So that's great, but there's a 15% chance that I might get it, right? So that's 1 out of every 8 handshakes. I'm a goner. It's kind of in my mind, or it could be, or whatever. So I'm thinking, man, but then if they've been vaccinated, well, math is way in our favor, right? Then you almost don't even worry about it. And so then it's a quick calculation of, hey, does this look like the kind of person that would get vaccinated or the kind of person that would blow it off? Because, 15% chance this could be a problem. So all that going through, maybe you didn't go through all that in your head really quickly, but a few weeks ago, that's the kind of stuff that was going through my head. So we've learned a few things, right? We've learned to think at least about contagious diseases and how that works. Well, spirituality is more caught than taught. I mean, you and I can say to our kids and kids in our life, however you relate to a child, hey, don't do what I do what I say. And that's not going to happen, because what we say, it really is important. We'll get to that. But what you and I do is way, way more impactful. I still remember one time driving down the road, and Caleb, my youngest, he was in the older 2, 3 range, and he's in the back seat, and we're in the left-hand lane, and I can be a little aggressive in my driving sometimes. I've gotten better. But in the left-hand lane, and somebody was going slow in the left-hand lane, they didn't realize that the left-hand lane is called what? The passing lane. Yeah, it's not driving lane, it's the passing lane. It just helps me to get that off my chest every couple years around here. Just remind, hey, as Chase Oakers, let's take responsibility to make the left-hand lane be a passing lane. That's right. Well, anyway, this person didn't get that memo. So I slowed down, and I was maybe a little close. And from the back seat, from my 3-year-old in the back seat, I hear this, "Out of the way, bozo." I'm thinking, okay, so where did he get that? Obviously, Christy. He'd been driving around with Christy, but kids do more, right? Like they watch, they see, right? And the same thing is true, certainly spirituality. Here's the scary thing about this, is that you and I as adults, certainly those of us who are dads, and by the way, there's a lot of studies that will show that dads are by far the most influential in terms of what kind of spirituality we pass on to our kids. But you and I actually already are passing on spirituality to our kids, whether we know it or not. We're passing on priorities to our kids, what's important in life to our kids, whether we know it or not. And what Moses is saying, so then let's be intentional. That we're passing on a vibrant spirituality. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength. And so the best thing you and I can do for the kids in our life is to develop our own faith. Is to grow our own relationship with God, is to make him our biggest priority and our biggest passion in life. And right now is an interesting time. I mean, I'm kind of preaching to the choir, right? Because, it's Father's Day, like I said. You dads and other people in the room, you're here. So that does say a whole lot, which is really cool. But there's a whole lot of people right now that are just all over the country, Christians, who were engaged, who are just sort of floating out there now. And I get it. We're coming out of a pandemic. It's easy to put spiritual life on the back burner. But let me encourage us to encourage people we know just to reach out to them and make sure they're okay. Because drifting is a dangerous spiritual place to be. And so just if you think, man, I don't wonder how they're doing, or man, I haven't seen them in my small group in a long time, or man, I used to sit by them and I haven't seen them in a long time. Just reach out to them and say, hey, I want to know how you're doing. And come to group with me, or hey, come sit with me at church, or watch online with me, or whatever. I think it's really important right now. But the fact that you and I, that you're here, you're online, again, says a whole lot. But let's keep taking steps, because that's essentially what the Christian life is. It's walking with God and taking new steps with him. As we spend time, as we grow, we spend time with other godly people in community. We spend time with God on our own through the Word. We show up like we are right now and hear from him and put that into practice. We serve him in different ways. As we prioritize our spiritual growth, then we can organically pass it on. So obviously it's important, like what we do, but it is important what we say also. And that's the next thing that he's going to say. Seize every opportunity to talk about the faith with your kids. Thinking back, he said, impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. Tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. Write them on the door frames of your houses and on your gates. We don't have to be overly literal about all that. You have to go home and write stuff on your house. The point that he was trying to make is, hey, look, take every opportunity you can. As you go through your day, take every opportunity you can to turn moments into teaching moments and to talk about God. And when you see a sunset, talk about God's creativity and how he created not only sunsets to be beautiful, but he was intentional about them and the way he created them, and to think about that. Or we'll actually give a little bit more on that here in a few minutes on how to have those conversations. But one of the things that's going on around here is also really important. And because as a church, we want to do a really good job passing the baton to the next generation. And so we're making some enhancements, some improvements to our children's ministry, which Kids Zone is awesome. But you're going to be hearing more about this next week as we're kind of rebranding Kids Zone. It's going to be called Kids Co. They'll talk about that next week. But some of the changes that are being made, one of them is what we've done through the curriculum is thought about from birth to maybe one or something, but from birth to high school, when people graduate, if people are going to be solid in their life and solid in their faith as kids and as junior hires and as teenagers, what do they need to be exposed to biblically? Like, what do they need to know? What kinds of things do they need to be thinking through? And so it's just at each stage of life, making sure that they're having the right kinds of input and the right conversation to equip them to face what they're facing as kids and teenagers. And so they'll be having these conversations and learning these biblical truths. And at the same time, it's an opportunity for parents to be part of the conversation. because that's where it's really gonna sink deeply into their hearts and lives. They'll be exposed to it at church. They'll be great. They'll have a blast. They'll have this great discussion. But then there'll be opportunities for however you relate to a child. But for those of you who are parents, certainly for parents to be able to say, okay, let's talk about that. And there'll be prompts and opportunities to say, well, man, if I'm going to pass the baton, like, I don't know, like what kind of conversations do I have? And it'll be like, well, we're gonna tee it up for you to be able to have the kind of conversations that you really do want to be having with your kids. And it'll shape them for their whole life to be able to live into all that God wants for them. And you'll hear more about it next week. It also means it's a great opportunity if you're looking for a place to serve in the church and think, man, I want to be used by God to have an impact. And I just don't know where. Kids Co is an incredible opportunity. I can't imagine, as well as student ministry as well, I can't imagine a more strategic one than equipping the next generation and making sure we pass the baton well. And you'll also have a blast. For Christy, my wife, serves at our Woodbridge campus. She comes here on Friday night at the Legacy campus, and then serves at our Woodbridge campus in Studio 56. And I'd love to say that the highlight of her church week is hearing me speak on Friday nights. I haven't asked her, but my guess is the highlight of her church week is when she's with her kids at Studio 56 leading those small groups, because she just loves it. She loves coming home, talking to me about it, and just saying, man, these kids are so amazing, and they're so smart, and you just can't believe the kind of conversation we had and the kinds of things they're thinking through. I'm so impressed. And anyway, it's just so if you're looking for a way to engage, it's a great way to engage. So when you put all this together, we just want to do a good job passing the baton of faith to the next generation, right? And it first means making sure we have something to pass, and then to be intentional in that baton pass. And so to talk about this a little bit more and to introduce us also to a tool to help grow our faith and do what we're talking about today, I'm going to invite somebody to the stage that is a very special part of our church. For some of you, many of you, he may be a stranger to you, but he's no stranger to this church because he's the one that God used to start this church. His name is Gene Getz. And he's an amazing person. He's one of my heroes. He's the one that passed the baton of this job that I have 16 years ago now, passed the baton from senior pastor to senior pastor. And I got to serve with him for about 15 years when he was senior pastor and I was on staff, and he's just an amazing person. He's written over 60 books. He's also written a study Bible called the Life Essentials Study Bible. We'll talk about that a little bit. It's just coming out with a new one just over the last few weeks that came out. So you'll hear about that tool as well. We've been praying for him a lot because he got COVID last year and has been through quite a journey. At one point, it looked really scary, and God helped him, find healing, and he's progressing out of that. And so with all that said, let's welcome Gene to the stage. Peter, can you bring my Bible back to me? And I don't know if you saw this online, but you just got a standing ovation.
Yeah, I did.
You deserve it. So, Gene, you're very loved here, certainly by me and by our church, and thank you for being you. And we have been praying for you through this experience with COVID that you've had, and catch us up a little bit on that part of your life, on your health. How are you doing?
Well, I'm making progress.
Yeah.
As most of you know, I really got hit. Was in the hospital for 8 months and in various care centers. And then I've been home about 3 months. And boy, that's great. I got the greatest caregiver in the world in Elaine. But I'm making progress. I had to learn to walk again. It's amazing. A lot of my family got COVID, but it only lasted a week. And it hit me a little differently, probably because of my age. But, it's really interesting. We were By the way, we had our 65th wedding anniversary
All
last
right.
week.
All right.
And our family was over, and they were just chatting, and I was listening, and they started talking about that first week or so when I was in the hospital, and the doctor told them, she said that, if you're going to get your family together, you better get them together now. Meaning they didn't know what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And it just really dawned on me that, and I didn't know much of what was going on, but they gathered in the hospital. But God chose to turn things around. So
Yeah.
that's why I'm here.
Well, we're very.
I learned a lot. I learned a lot about love. It's one thing to know your kids love you, but at a time like that, you really know it.
Yeah.
It was great.
Well, we're very thankful because there's a lot that God has for you to do. And I know, like Paul said, right, to go home and be with the Lord is great, but to be here means more ministry, and I know that's the way you live your life. And in fact, we're going to talk, we'll be talking about that here a little bit. So we just talked, as you know, about Deuteronomy 6.
Right.
We were talking earlier this week.
One of my favorite passages.
That's what and I know for you and Elaine, as you parented your children, and then grandparented, continue to grandparent grandchildren, that's been a very important passage to you as you think about that. So talk about that a little bit. How did that shape your parenting?
Well, I appreciate the message. It was well done. And I think the thing that we sometimes miss is what you pointed out, is the spontaneity that's built into that. Because to walk by the way and to lie down and stand up and wherever, that's spontaneity. I mean, you don't have your Bible and pull it out and, okay, we're going to talk here, we're going to talk here. It's dealing with the circumstances of life, with the experiences that you're having as children, as a family, and it's a natural moment. I think the most natural moment, by the way, is when you put them to bed at night when they're young, and they like to have you read stories, and they don't want to go to sleep, so you read a Bible story, and they'll say, "Read another one, Daddy."
Yeah.
And nor ordinarily, they're not that attentive, but they are attentive when you can key into their experience with a biblical truth. And it's not huge. We're not talking sermons and lots of time. We're talking about moments that children won't forget. And so, it was a great message.
Well, thank you. And those informal times through the day.
That's right.
And so one of the things going on in your life that has certainly been helpful for so many in us, you've written books that are like Measure of a Man 50 years ago, I think almost you wrote that. It's still a best-selling book and helping men grow in their faith, as we were talking about in this message. The Life Essentials Study Bible, many Chase Oakers, we use that as part of our life with God. And I know God is using the Life Essentials Bible in all kinds of ways. In fact, a few weeks ago, it was really pretty cool. In Austin, something happened at the Capitol that I think people need to know about if they don't already. So share about that.
Well, Phil King is a representative from District 61 beyond Fort Worth, and I was at his church. I spoke, and we made the Bible available, and he bought one. And I didn't get to meet him then, but he texted me, and he said, "Gene, I got the Bible. I'm reading it every day. I watch the videos." He said, "It's incredible. I'm sharing this Bible with others." In fact, he said, "I would like to arrange for you to come to Austin when the House meets and lead us in prayer. And I would like for the House of Representatives to do a resolution to you in honor of your ministry." And of course, it just was overwhelming. I did not expect that. The doctor agreed, and my family had a little bit of an intervention and didn't let me go to Austin. I wanted to, but they've got people coming from all over the world, and you know the possibilities there are not good. So I was not able to be there, but we watched it online. And in fact, here when they walked in, you can see those are the desks of 150 of our House of Representatives, and on that desk is a Life Essentials Study Bible. And so Phil King arranged to get the Bibles so they could have them, and he could make that presentation of that Bible to the 150 House of Representatives. And here are 5 of the representatives afterwards holding their Bibles. The irony is, when we got back to Dallas, when they got back to Dallas, the Senate found out that they had received the Bibles, and so we sent 30 more.
That's great.
But it was an unexpected encouragement
Yeah.
and blessing. And I just got a text from Phil again. He said, Gene, I just finished all of Genesis, watched every video, and he said it just was incredible. And he said, I'm having fun. I've just ordered another batch of Bibles because I'm giving them out as I meet with these key individuals over breakfast, over lunch. And so
That's amazing.
it's amazing
Yeah.
what God's doing. So.
And for those who don't know, the Life Essentials Study Bible has 1,500 principles embedded, over 1,500 principles embedded in it with these QR codes, and you see Gene teaching basically that principle, which really brings the Bible to life. When you just read the Bible and think, well, I don't know what that said, I don't know what that means, it pulls that out. And so you can imagine what a great tool it is, not only here, but around the world. And that's happening in some really cool ways. And so talk about that a little bit.
Yes, well, it's almost happening every week where something is uniquely happening in other parts of the world. In fact, we just sent 200 Bibles to the Philippines, and we train the pastors. These are for pastors primarily, not exclusively, for church leaders. And it's like a seminary in a box because they've had no formal training, and they've never been taught to prepare messages. And we just, by the way, just sent 200. They're on their way to India, where a graduate of Southwestern Seminary came 2 years ago. I trained him in how to use the Bible. He's now got his doctorate. He's going back to India, taking 200 Bibles with him. In the Bible school, he'll train these pastors on how to use it. But one of the exciting things you'll notice, if I take you to Uganda, Africa, this is about a 3-year project just coming to a culmination. There are 5 motel units there and a large training center and highly arranged with technology. It's called the Life Essentials Study Bible Training Center, where they will bring 25 pastors in from the various areas around, and even from neighboring African countries, because most of them speak English. It's their second language, and they are trained for a week in that training center. We have all the technology for them to access the QR codes, to watch the videos. In fact, they have the technology to put it all on a thumb drive so they can go into the bush, the jungle, the African areas where they don't have access. And all 1,500 videos are on a little thumb drive. And they can have their Bibles. And so I wish you'd pray about that. By the way, you see, we're getting ready to send 2,000. That's a lot of Bibles, folks. And that's a cost. But you see, for every Bible we sell through our ministry, we're able to give one away. All the profits go into a Bible fund. So, for example, if this weekend we sold 2,000 Bibles to y'all, that would give us 2,000 Bibles to send to Africa. And that's how we're doing this, literally all over the world. So it's just beginning to expand. Jeff, and it just amazes me.
It is amazing. And I didn't talk with you about this, but as a church, we want to help in another way too. And from time to time, we do this. But we do want to give you a check out of our global fund. People give to our global fund and are very generous to those. And so we want to give you a check for $10,000 to help do that. And,
That'll give us a great start. Just to give you an example, the 2,000 Bibles will cost us $70,000. And twice that, that's just our cost for the Bible. You pay full cost for it. That gives us 50% to give. So, boy, this will be great.
absolutely.
Thank you. That's unexpected.
Yeah, that's a delight. Let's shift a little bit because there's another. You came out with another study Bible, and that is the Men of Character Study Bible that just came out. Really, from all your work that through Measure of a Man and other books that you've written that help us guys grow in our faith, so that we have something to pass on as we're talking about this weekend. So, share a little bit about the Men of Character Bible.
Yeah, this is the Men of Character Bible. In fact, probably a week ago, those were sitting on a ship on the west coast, and they've just come from the printer overseas, and we were able to get them here for Father's Day, and we're so thankful. But as you said, and here's a fascinating thing in terms of God's timing, is that I basically finished all the editing of these profiles just before I got COVID, and had it finished and to the printer. And so while I've been on the shelf, as it were, it's been in the process of being printed. It has 125 profiles that I've done on men of the Bible. And where you can see a profile, you can see principles lived by that grow from their life and qualities that grow from their life. And you see the bad as well as the good. And God has just laid out the bad as well. And what we can learn from what they didn't do right. And Paul, by the way, you know, when he wrote to Corinthians, he said, these things have been written so that you will not repeat what they have done. And so it's been an exciting study. It's been a life study with Measure of Man. I wrote 12 character books, actually, on Old Testament, New Testament characters. And that's a condensation, picking out the most significant men of the Bible that we can look at. As I said, 125. But I'm so thankful I got that done.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah,
because they were waiting on all that. And then, boom, about the next day, I was hit with COVID. So God's timing.
Yeah. Well, I know God's really going to use that too, and I'm glad it came out too just before Father's Day. So,
and by the way, the prices on these are the same as the prices on Life Essentials, and so half of what you spend goes into our fund to ship them. My hope and prayer is that men all over the world can get this, because you go into some of these primitive countries and they have no concept of what it means to be a man, or how to treat a woman, or how to be a father. I mean, it's pagan. It's pagan. And so God is giving us an opportunity there too.
Absolutely. Well, for those of you who would like to purchase a Bible at all of our campuses, your campus pastor in just a little bit is going to, or by the end of the service, is going to tell you how to do that. You're about to hear about how to do that online for those of you who are watching.
And by the way, I've signed them because they don't want me getting too close to you. I'm sorry, because I'd be right down there.
Yeah. Oh,
But,
yeah. I know you would.
I'm sorry that I can't hug everybody.
Yeah. Well, consider yourself hugged by this church for sure. And so thank you, Gene. And what we're talking about is developing a vibrant faith ourselves that we can then pass on to the next generation. And as a church, we've got to get this right. And as you look at what's happening in our culture, you could argue that in American culture, we're in danger of losing a generation, and we're not going to do that, and certainly not here, not with our kids. And so that's why we're putting a whole lot of effort into what's happening in Kids Co. and children's ministry, and this opportunity to grow our faith that we can then pass on. And so let me encourage you to dive in. And these are great tools to do just that. And I want to pray for us and pray for the next generation in our church and pray for Gene and the ministry as well. So let's bow our heads together and pray. Father, I do thank you for how you have crafted every human being made in your image with innate dignity and a unique design and a unique contribution. And every human being you love in ways that are beyond what we can understand. And Father, I pray that you would help us in our generation to do the best job possible of living into the calling and destiny that you have for us so that we can then pass that same thing on to the next generation, to the kids in our life and the kids in our communities and the kids in our church. Father, would you help us as a church get this right? Would you help us in our homes, in our neighborhoods, in our communities get this right? Father, I thank you for how you are using Gene. I thank you for how you did spare his life so that much more ministry to come as you continue to use him to bless so many. And I pray that as these Bibles continue to go out and people stay in the Word, and that you would continue to change lives and grow people. And Father, I also pray for anybody who in their spiritual journeys, we talk about loving the Lord our God with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength. It starts with a relationship with you that can only come through Jesus and what he did on the cross to make it possible for our sins to be forgiven and us to know you. And I pray you pull them toward yourself just to say yes to the forgiveness that you want for them and to your presence in their life to change them and transform. And we thank you for the vision you have for our lives and the vision you have for our kids' lives. Help us live into both. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Do you want this back?
Man,
Sure.
that is
Yeah, that's
just
true.
really inspiring. I can tell
Yes.
that Dr. Gene Getz has been a role model for a ton of people. I hope to accomplish half the stuff he's done.
Absolutely. I want to be Gene when I grow up. I mean, that's just so great to see him in person and to be here. You may be wondering, whether you want to get your hands on the Men of Character Bible for yourself or as a gift, how you might be able to do that. You can go online at BiblePrinciples.org and purchase it there. And it is it's a great gift, something great for yourself, and a great way to pass the baton to the next generation if you'd like to.
Yes, and speaking of pouring into the next generation, we have got a story about a family who's been doing that by serving in our Kids Zone ministry. So let's go ahead and roll this video.
My boys and I, we serve in Kids Zone, and so the boys do a good job with the kids in the small groups, and then Renee serves in 56.
In studio, and the girls are in studio, and we've really all the kids we've always served, and so we just love loving the kids and teaching them about Jesus and playing games with them and just engaging with them, building relationships, and we plug in on our off weekends, and today we'll be in preschool. You know, life is so busy that even though we live under the same roof, sometimes we're just going from school to lessons, and so we just get to be still together and serve together, and it really brings us closer as well, and just builds our family stronger and our life group stronger.
For us, it's just investing in this age and to make sure that they hear the gospel and they see people who love Jesus and try to do their best to serve him. I think it's just availability and not ability. It's being available to serve and to fill that need and to really to be here for the kids.
people don't realize what a gift it is. It's not just one more thing on their to-do list. It is just what you really just serving, you think you're helping a need, but just the blessings you get back and just the relationships with the kids. It's just it's so rewarding.
That was awesome. What a great way to be on mission together, to serve together, and to make a difference as a family.
Yes, and if you'd like to make a difference by giving, we've made it really easy. You can go to our app or our website and do everything right there. Well, now we're going to go ahead and transition into a time of worship. So turn off your speakers and let's kick it over to the band.
Yeah, I'm going to invite you guys to stand and worship with us. And, as Jeff gave a message about generational faith and what that looks like, I would just encourage you to use this time to just lay that before God, figure out where it is that you need to receive God's blessing and where it is that you can be a part of giving God's blessing. Let's worship.
Lord bless you and keep you. May his face shine upon you, be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. The Lord bless you and keep you. May his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. Amen. Amen. Lord bless you and keep you. May his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. We sing amen. His favor upon you and 1,000 generations, and your family, and your children, and their children, and their children. May his favor be upon you and 1,000 generations, and your family, and your children, and their children, and their children. May his presence go before you and behind you and beside you, all around you and within you. He's with you, He's with you. In the morning, in the evening, in the coming and the growing, you're weeping, rejoicing. He is for you, 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 He is for you. Let's give a shout of praise to the Lord. And we're going to continue worshiping, and we're going to sing about our testimony, what God has done in our lives. And we're just going to praise what He's done for us. I saw something fall like lightning. I saw darkness run for cover, but the miracle that I just can't get over, my name is registered in heaven. And signs and wonders, resurrection power, still the miracle that I just can't get over, my name is registered in heaven. Yeah, my praise belongs to you forever. This is my testimony from death to life, 'cause grace rewrote my story.